Welcome to Two Chicks and a Horror Flick, a weekly horror movie review podcast. I'm Tawny Ray.
And I'm Felicia Connor. Subscribe to get new episodes every Wednesday. We dive into trivia, drink a little whiskey, and of course, give our no BS opinions.
Join our Discord server or message us on social media to talk all things scary.
And if you like the show, consider supporting us on Patreon.
You can find all these links on our website, twochicksandahorrorflick.com. Thanks for listening.
Now let's get scared. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am still feeling that high from your visit, Tawny. Totally still feeling that high.
Me too.
So excited. Now, the only positive thing about recording not in person is the freaking editing process with the mics picking up our voices.
Yeah. I knew that was going to be tricky, but I don't know. I think we did all that we could without sitting in a different room. Like, sitting in a different room would have sucked, though. Like, I don't want to fucking be in the same spot as you and then have to sit in different rooms. Like, that's no. We just
That we'll just make sure next time we will either have the equipment set up, because I know Joe Rogan sits right across from his guests. You know what I mean? There's not a wall between them, or get a studio. So, like we were thinking. Yeah,
totally. I think part of it is that, they're set up for that. We're not, because we are virtual. And also, the other thing that I realized is, like, we probably should have had the mics so much closer to our mouths, and then we should have talked quieter. But we couldn't. I don't think you could either get the mics closer the way that we were set up. So, because you watch people who are podcasting, and it is the mic is right on their face, right? Like, they're speaking directly into the mic. Whereas, like, I wanted to have like a normal sitting back type of conversation with you. So, like, it is what it is. But you were the one who had to do all the editing. So thank you again. I've thanked you already a million times, but
thank you for doing the first hour of it.
Yeah.
Thank you. I almost took a snapshot of the actual, whatever this is called, timeline, because it was like, there were so many lines and so many dots. It was great. So hopefully you all enjoy it. But today we are talking about the 2024 movie, The Devil's Bath. But before we get into it, Tawny, what are you drinking?
Oh, just my normal water on deck today. So that's what I've got going on. What about you?
Awesome. I also have my normal water on deck because I have told myself after that edit that I am not drinking during episodes unless it is only one drink for some special occasion. Because I have to tell you, by the end of those 4 hours, I was saying out loud, "Shut up, Miriam. Stop." Yeah. If I hear you talk about the Elephant Man one more time, I'm going to lose my mind. There was this one piece where I was talking about the Elephant Man's mouth and how it was shaped and how it slurred his speech. And I was trying to explain how it sounded. And I'm like, it sounds exactly how you sound right now, Miriam. I'm like talking to myself. That is how he sounded. Stop.
I'm sure it wasn't as bad as you, because I feel like we are all more hard on ourselves than other people. Yeah. And like, I never feel like it's as bad as you do when you are like being critical of yourself, and vice versa. Like, I'll be being critical of myself and you are like, I didn't notice, it's fine. So
that makes me very happy. I think also because I would go back and try to edit the smallest echoes. So I was constantly re-listening to the same, little bit over and over. And so at that point I was like, but probably someone just listening to it. It's the first time I've said it. They're not telling me to shut up.
Yeah, totally.
Oh my goodness.
And if you don't know what we're talking about, our last two episodes, we did a part 1 and part 2 because we were in person on The Substance, which is an incredible movie. Highly recommend to listeners of this podcast. And we had an amazing, very long discussion about it. We've never done that before, broken an episode up into multiple parts, but it felt like maybe that was necessary because I feel like we had a really good conversation, but we were drinking. So I was like, is sober me going to feel the same way?
I think it absolutely did. Each episode was only the first one an hour and a half when you cut it right down. And the second one was an hour and 20 minutes. So I think that I tried to take out all of my incessant repeating myself just to make sure you totally understand what I'm saying, but leave in what we thought was most important. So yeah, hopefully you love it. I am drinking one more thing, though, that I want to share because I'm so freaking excited. So since we are recording in the afternoon, I am going to drink my Magic Mind shot.
Nice.
Live. And I wanted to say, I was really excited to share because you've heard us talk about Magic Mind before. So the Magic Mind mental performance shot, little green shot here. But I haven't had it in a while. I had forgotten to reorder and there just some time had passed. But lately I was really feeling sluggish and unmotivated and restless. And I was really frustrated with myself because I was like, I want to exercise. I want to finish my projects and be focused and all of these different things. And then I had remembered, oh, you know what, Magic Mind. And I really did like it. So I ordered some. And I have been drinking these Magic Mind shots for the last 8 days. Look at this. I have all my bottles. Those are the only ones that I could pick up. But I've been doing it consistently. And so I wanted to share because, wow. Because I think even the last time I took them, I wasn't doing it as consistent. So I just wanted to tell you how I've been feeling because I'm pretty blown away. Yeah. So the first thing I wanted to mention was how gentle it was. I started drinking it after my Yom Kippur fast last week. And so for those that don't know, you fast for 25 hours. And I started to take it and I was a little nervous. My stomach was completely fine. And of course, everybody's body's different, but Tawny knows, especially having been here, because I talked about it at great length, that my stomach is really sensitive. I don't have any issues. I take this on an empty stomach first thing in the morning and absolutely love it.
Amazing.
The next thing after consistent use, I just have a couple more things, is energy and focus. I have found that it has really helped me with both of these. So when I sit down to do a project for work, I'm like laser focused into that project, which is something I've wanted for such a long time because I'm just very easily restless and distracted. And I've been like cranking out my projects, which is awesome because I've had a lot of them. Also, I feel way more energized, but it's not that anxious, buzzing type of energy you get from energy shots. I'm sure if you've had them before, you know what I'm talking about. It's totally different. It's just, I don't know. You just have the energy as though you've slept for a week. I don't even know. I did read, though, that its formula has 12 active ingredients that support your body's natural energy production so that you do stay energized without that crash that you often feel from, say, coffee, right? So it's not just like a quick fix. I'm going to feel good for the next hour. It lasts all day long. And the last thing I want to say is I really love how multifunctional it is. I really love this because I think it's incredibly unique to Magic Mind. It's not just to boost your energy, but it also reduces stress and gives you 100% of your daily vitamin C and D. This was a game changer for me because I'm historically, every time I get my...
That's amazing. Sorry, I was like...
No, that's okay. I paused because I was like, every time I go get my blood drawn for like my annual physical, I'm always low on vitamin D. I don't know what's going on. It's too hot in Arizona. I don't want to go outside. We all are? Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm always low and they always give me a prescription for it to take it. So I think that's really cool. Working double duty. And also, I have been feeling consistently brighter and happier. And I really think a big portion of motivation is also feeling, not just having the energy, but like feeling happier, like wanting to do these different things. And I noticed on the bottle, it says, I love this, reclaim your brain. And I was reading into it because I was like, how does it give me energy, but also reduce stress, like make me calm? And I read that Magic Mind helps improve mood by including natural ingredients that reduce stress and promote calmness without sacrificing the energy. And I think it's their mixture. I know it's their mixture of adaptogens and nootropics that support that balanced mental state. And so in a nutshell, I am massively obsessed. I truly can't imagine my morning without it. I am working, completing my projects. And then after work, I'm doing all the things that I do. And then I'm writing, and I have been exercising consistently for the past week.
Wow. I know we were talking about that too when we were driving to the airport when we left. You were talking about the exercising and getting back into that. That's amazing. I also am on day 7. Here's my empty bottle from today. And I'm feeling great too.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So I'm going to drink it right now. Here we go.
Oh, here she goes.
Here we go. Here's a little shot. And you can watch my face because I like the taste. It's very yummy. Has a little bit of lemon. It's very good.
Mm-hmm. It's green. Also, you've heard us talk at length about green juice. We love that.
I love green juice. See my face? I'm not wincing. It's super good. I love green juice. And it's lemony. And it's fantastic. I feel so good. So if you are struggling with any of the same things that I do that I just mentioned, which I'm sure you do because I'm not that unique. I'm not that special, just a little. I really, really want you to try Magic Mind. It's really amazing. What you can do is you can go to magicmind.com/chicks20. It's a mouthful. And you could use the code CHICKS20 and get up to 48% off your first subscription for the next 10 days or 20% off a one-time purchase. Last thing I'll say is when you get it and start taking it, please let us know because I really think you are going to be so happy you did.
Yeah.
All right. So now that I'm feeling great, Tawny, what have you been watching? What have you been up to?
Yeah. We haven't watched a ton since coming home from your visit. It's just been really busy. Work's been super busy. But we are caught up on From. So that's awesome.
Nice. I still have MGM Plus. That I did the trial. I did the trial so that they could watch From. We could watch it together while they were visiting.
I hope you cancel that if you're not going to watch it, so that we're not costing you money.
No, I'll have to tell you why when I share what I've been watching. I decided not to cancel it because of this.
Okay, great. Okay, cool. We also started on Friday night. I'm like, what day is it? Yeah. Not last night, but the night before, we started a show on Peacock called Hysteria.
Oh.
And it is very fucking good. It's like it has like Grady Hendrix vibes. I have talked before about his book, My Best Friend's Exorcism. And that is such a fun book. And he has a very specific vibe that he writes. And it's really hard to describe. But I was like trying to describe it to Jade as like, it's like dark pop. Almost like there's like dark and serious stuff happening, but at the same time, it's like light and kind of funny. And it just balances. He does a really great job of balancing that well. And the show is, I feel like, nailing that same tone. So it's definitely worth checking out if you have Peacock. It's like about a high school band, like metal band, who take on sort of like a demonic persona to like boost their brand, but it's happening alongside sort of a satanic panic situation in their town, and it's just fun. It's very fun.
Is this the kind of vibe? I believe the movie was called Friday. Was it not Friday? Or was it
Freaky?
Freaky. Sorry, Friday. Everyone's like Friday. Yeah, Freaky. That same type of vibe.
Yeah, similar. Okay. Yeah, I would say that's close to it because it is kind of fun but also dark but funny. Yeah,
I love that. Okay, I'll just check it out.
But yeah, what have you been up to?
I only watched one episode, but I wanted to mention it because I know how this story scares you. There is, and I forgot to write down what stations or what streaming services I watched it on, but The Real Murders on Elm Street, and it's a series, and I was like, oh. I didn't finish it because it seemed like it was just murders that happened on Elm Street somewhere in the world.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So it isn't actually related to the movie. But
Right.
the very first episode, I'm thinking is probably the scariest, is Killer in the Walls. It was about that kid that was living in the walls.
Oh, God,
Remember we
no.
talked about that before?
Yes.
So they dive deep into that story, and it is truly chilling. That's the only episode I watched, but that I'm going to wager is the scariest one.
Ugh.
Ugh. All right, next, after you and Jade had left, my daughter came down that Friday, not because you left, just because she came down Friday and you were gone, to stay with me, came down from college. And she was just being snuggly and is like, Mom, do you want to watch a Stephen King movie? And wanted to watch it with me. And so we watched Carrie.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Me, her, and TT.
Okay.
Watched Carrie. So TT was laying on the sofa with her back to it, but she kept looking and watching. And actually, it wasn't, when you think back at it, I think for her age, there were pieces that were like, what?
Yeah.
That weren't, as intense. And then as far as like the graphics, I just think she's seen so much worse, even with just Jurassic Park, let's say, that it didn't scare her or anything. But we, all three of us, had a really nice conversation after about the movie. They both loved it. And we were talking about what really stuck with TT was I just loved it because when Carrie was at prom, she kept going, oh, I love Carrie. She's so sweet and beautiful. I wish people would be nice to her. Like, and then when shit went down, she was like, you get him, Carrie.
Yeah.
She's like, no, Carrie, not the teacher. She loves you. So we had a really good conversation after about it, and they really liked it. So, and I liked it again as well, watching it.
That's awesome.
Again. Yeah.
That's reminding me, I didn't write this down, but I'm just going to interject one of the things that I rewatched. I wanted to do like a movie night with Paige and Trevor, because we were trying to, when we got back from that trip, I hung out with Paige on my day off, the day after we came back in. And so we were like, let's make like a, October spooky season list of things to do. And that was on our list as like a movie night. And I was like, dude, we should watch Christine, because I've really been feeling I want to go back and watch it again during this Halloween season. And she had never seen it. And so I was like, oh shit, we're doing that. So we did that last weekend. We just like hung out and watched Christine, and the rest of us had seen it already, but Paige loved it. And it was just like such a fun movie.
And you liked it still again, watching it. Nice.
Yeah.
Look at us, Christine and Carrie.
Yeah.
Look at that. I love that.
Stephen King movies for October.
Yes. It was really cool to share such an iconic movie with the girls and have them like it, even though it's so old. It was very cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
Researching for this, my passion just overloaded. I told Tawny I woke up at 7:30 this morning to do some research. And at noon, I was like, oh, crap, we're supposed to be recording. I just was totally immersed and told Steve, I was like, just a heads up. I know I'll need to unload some things off my plate, but I think I want to go back to graduate school. This was just so much fun for me. I absolutely loved it.
Oh, my God. Amazing. I thought you would have fun just knowing that this was a folk horror movie. I didn't know anything about it other than that, but I was like, we had a conversation about what was next, and I was like, I feel like maybe you want to do the research for this. So,
oh yeah, any of them. I want to give you opportunities too, but one thing about this movie I feel bummed about is yesterday I was planning on doing research, but I woke up with a terrible migraine and was laid out until the evening. So that's why I did the research this morning. But the research paper was made from, it's a 33-page paper, and I read over half of it, but then and I want to read the rest. And then her name is Katie Stewart, who wrote the papers on it, the graduate papers. She has 2 more relating to this subject, and I have them printed out, and I didn't get to it. And I wish I would have literally researched this for an entire day. I don't know how much more it would have added to what we're going to talk about, but
you're just interested
so
in
fascinated. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. I'm excited.
All right. You want to talk about it?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. So we are talking about, just mentioned, the 2024 film, The Devil's Bath. It's a Shudder original. And so I watched it on Shudder. The director was Veronika Franz and Severin Fiala. They also wrote and directed Goodnight Mommy and The Lodge. So I
forgot that they had done The Lodge.
I think I'm a big fan of these two.
Yeah.
They also wrote the screenplay for this. Veronika and Severin did. However, just like I mentioned, it is based on a book, which the book is an academic paper by Kathy Stewart, who's an associate professor of history at UC Davis. Another job. I should be a professor so I could talk about this stuff all day long. Anyways, but she did publish it as a book called Suicide by Proxy in Early Modern Germany, Crime, Sin, and Salvation. Cinematographer is Martin Geschlacht. Okay, there we go. And I'm sorry, Martin, if you hear this. There's not enough vowels in that name, so I'm hoping I said it right.
Yeah, it felt like a valiant effort to me.
Okay. The cast, I just wrote down the 3 top people. Anya Plask was Agnes, David Sheed was Wolf, and Maria Hofstadter was Mutter, or was Wolf's mother, or Mutter is how it's written. The stats. Okay, so I don't know what the budget was, but the box office just was like 55,000.
Okay.
So I meant to look this up, but didn't because I was more interested in the other research. But is this because it was released on Shudder? I think it had a very, very small opening, and I think it was only in Germany. Or viewing. So.
Okay, that makes sense.
Sorry, guys. So I didn't write down any of the. I literally only cared about the research. I'm sorry. Okay, looking it up right now. It's a 6.6 out of 10 on IMDb. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 90%, and Letterboxd gave it a 3.5 out of 5. Okay. Thank God that was readily available. Thank you, Google. I did also want to mention some awards. It won a lot of awards. At the Berlin International Film Festival, it was Outstanding Artistic Contribution. At the Festival of Austrian Films, it got Best Sound Design. And at the Austrian Film Awards, so different, Best Feature Film, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress, Best Film Editing, Best Makeup, Best Production Design, and Best Score. All right, my little summary. Thank you to my BFF, ChatGPT. The Devil's Bath is a historical horror film set in 18th century Austria. It follows Agnes, a devout woman who enters a bleak and oppressive marriage, leading her to struggle with isolation and mental deterioration. As her despair deepens, Agnes's inner turmoil drives her to commit a shocking act. All right. So, Tawny, how did you feel about this movie?
This was a really weird one, I feel like. A really weird watch because I expected it to be something that it wasn't. But overall, I think I liked it. It was... I was left at the end like, whoa, that was crazy. But then I love how... Then I was like trying to explain it to Jade. And as I was talking it out, I was like, man, this is actually like really well done in the way that, you know, we start the movie off with, we watch a woman pick up a baby and throw this baby down into a waterfall, just kills it, and then goes and confesses. She's like, I committed a murder. And you're like, what happened there? I don't know. So we like cut to our main character, cast of characters, and we go through the story. And then at the end, our main character also kills a child and goes to the church and is like, you know, I've sinned, please forgive me. And I can't remember exactly what it says at the end, but the text is sort of like, you know, it was very common for women who wanted to die, basically, instead of committing suicide because they were so afraid of going to hell or being punished for committing suicide, that they would murder somebody, mostly children, and be absolved of their crimes before they were executed, or who knows, thrown in jail, but probably executed.
No, executed. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, whoa, just taken way aback. Because I just kept thinking this movie was going to be supernatural. I just like kept thinking I was like, there's a witch in here somewhere. There's some devils stuff. But fucking no, we get to the end. And I was like, oh, this is just a bleak movie. And so for that reason, it just felt really different to me. But I think I overall really liked it for that reason, because you're so confused at the beginning of the movie. You're like, why would this lady do that? But by the time we like walk through the steps and get to the end, you're like, oh, I kind of see. I mean, not that anybody should be out here murdering children, obviously, but like she's so afraid of her idea of like hell, and she's so, you know, deep in that, but she's also so unhappy. And, you know, this is fucking, what did you say, 18th century, so they don't have, you know, they don't have, what is
Lexapro
it?
Or
yes, Lexapro or you know, we don't have antidepressants on hand. No. So she, you know, sort of crumbles, and you feel for her. I feel like it was really well done. I think it was probably one of the best depictions of depression I've ever seen on screen, alongside Melancholia. So like, I think talking about this again, I feel like I really liked it. It just was so different than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
How did you feel?
I felt the exact same way. I really liked it. I thought it was going to be something different too. I thought
I mean, the Devil's Bath like evokes, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I actually have something on that. Well, I researched it. I looked it up. I was like, why is it called the Devil's Bath? Because I was waiting for this supernatural element, or even if it wasn't supernatural, the way the movie started and was going along these everyday lives, I thought, okay, well, maybe she's going to be accused of witchcraft or consorting with the devil. But I looked it up, and it says it's an 18th century vernacular. Melancholic individuals were described as being trapped in the devil's bath. So this term refers to a phenomenon that remains a social taboo even today. It's referring to depression.
Wow.
So that's what they called it.
I mean, I'm surprised even that they had like, I think that's one of the things that was surprising about watching this movie is I kept thinking that they were going to accuse her of being a witch or making a deal with the devil or being possessed. Like, I just kept thinking that's what they were going to do, but they sort of recognize that she is depressed, and they say you have melancholy basically and send her off to get treated for that. And that's horrible. I don't know if we want to talk about that yet, but
yeah, absolutely. Well, before we jump into that, like I mentioned before, movie was based on the research of Kathy Stewart and her paper, and I have it in my hand, on the suicide by proxy. And in this paper, it did seem that these people it was acknowledged that they were suffering from melancholy versus being possessed by the devil. There was a piece where I read that, say, in Protestantism, there was that when people were in this melancholic state, they would be more susceptible to the devil. But there wasn't a whole lot, which was what I was expecting, was that, oh, she's feeling this way because she let the devil in. But no, they recognize, no, these are people that are suffering from this, and, you know, this is what they do, and it's a huge problem.
Interesting.
Yeah, I have this piece here that I wanted to read from this paper, if that's okay, that kind of talks about this story. But actually, before I get into this, I wanted to comment on something that you said as well. I absolutely loved, I know they said it explicitly at the end, that they said this is what it's based on, and so on and so forth. But I thought they did a really excellent job of conveying this through the movie without explicitly telling you this.
Totally.
You could tell that they were a religious community. You could tell that the death by suicide was not a good thing, based on that man, how he killed himself and the mom didn't want him to be let go, and then how the body was disposed of, just thrown like garbage, right?
Yeah.
And so you understood what was happening, even if you don't have any experience or any knowledge of like this religion and, suicide being a mortal sin and all that sort of thing.
Totally.
Is that true?
I think so, yeah.
I knew that, but I didn't know. Okay, cool. Yeah, I thought they did a really good job. They almost didn't need to put that at the end, but I think at the end, the snippet telling you about it was good because it's like, yeah, this is a true story. It happened all the time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, totally. I agree. Like you don't need it from a storytelling perspective, but it did sort of like really pack a punch and drive the message home that this was a real thing that happened a lot, actually. And so I liked that it was there, but I agree that, you totally get it. And you also totally get why she is feeling the way that she is and why she would do this. And even why she would kill a child. She says, I thought I would make him an angel, basically, and he wouldn't grow up to sin. And in a very religious community, that obviously that's a bad perspective to have, but you can understand how she arrived there at that. And I'm curious to know if that's sort of the same line of thinking that these real women had. So I don't know if there's anything in there about that, but.
Oh, there is. You want me to share it? Let's just talk about it. Okay. I'm going to read this because I think she just does an excellent job. This is directly from Suicide by Proxy by Kathy Stewart. I also have links. Oh, I got all into I love going to college. I just want to go back so bad. I had like JSTOR and these other academic papers where you search to help find, research and supporting documents for whatever it is that you are writing a paper on. And so getting back into those different databases, I felt like massively nerdy and loved it. So I have the links. You can download her paper directly. So I will share that, and it's free, and you can also buy her book. So let's go ahead and get into it. I'm directly reading from her paper. So on May 24th, 1704, about 10 in the morning, Agnes Katerina Schicken, a 30-year-old serving woman from the town of Schorndorf in Württemberg, arrived at the village of Krumhard. After asking for and receiving a glass of milk from a local peasant woman, Agnes was on her way out of the village when she saw 4, in her words, beautiful little boys playing together by the roadside. She approached the children and asked for directions to Schorndorf. When one of the boys, Hans Michael Birch, the 7-year-old son of a local cowherder, said he knew the way, she offered him a gift and asked him to walk with her. The 3 other boys wanted to come along too, but she dissuaded them. Agnes and the 7-year-old walked off into the forest alone. So this is towards the end of the movie, the scene that's depicted in here. Over the course of the day, Agnes took the boy deep into the forest, where they encountered several passerbys who would later testify that they saw them walking, talking, and sitting down together. At 4 in the afternoon, a passing messenger saw the boy sitting down while Agnes knelt before him, delousing him, so taking things out of his hair. But this affectionate intimacy would come to an abrupt end. When the boy wanted to return home in the evening, she threw him violently to the ground. Begging for mercy, the boy tried to appease her by reciting the prayers, the Our Father, and the Creed among them. This was repeated 3 times. Twice his prayers did move her, but she even helped him up to his feet. But then she felt embittered, threw the boy to the ground, drew a knife, and cut his throat so deeply that she later described she could look down into his neck. As the bright blood flowed, she said to him, "May God protect you, you sweet angel. You are an angel before God." Leaving him to die, she returned to that city she was going to, where she told the first people she met about the murder, and they took her into custody. Asked how she could justify killing an innocent child, she answered, "The child is now saved. She had only done it so that she herself could leave the world as well. Now the hangman will surely dispatch her." And let me just check really quick. So the details of this dramatic murder narrative, drawn from Agnes's unsolicited and voluntary confession, conform to a particular cultural pattern. The crime unfolded according to a specific liturgy. This case was an example of what 18th century German jurists came to call indirect suicide, but also we call it suicide by proxy. The perpetrators of suicide by proxy committed murder with the intention of bringing about their own death by execution and thus avoiding the eternal damnation that befall direct suicides. Sometimes such suicidal individuals also committed other capital crimes, such as arson, or confessed to crimes that they had not committed. Usually classic infanticides, which I researched is when an unwed woman or someone who's committed adultery gives birth to a child, they would sometimes kill it. But that's different because they're not trying to get themselves killed. They're just trying to hide, their sins. So sometimes they would confess to that. And probably the person that killed their kids like, thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks,
I was going to say,
Jane.
that seems way easier to just take on a crime instead of committing the crime yourself.
Yeah, but I guess it depends, right? Does everyone know already who committed that crime? Like,
yeah,
how many crimes are happening that you're able to say it was me, believably?
Right. Like if you don't have if you weren't pregnant and you didn't have a body and you're like, I had a baby and I killed it, people would be like, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so. Let's see. The most frequent form of suicide by proxy, however, involved murder, and the perpetrators typically chose children as their victims because, as the 18th century jurist Karl Ferdinand Hommel explained, they believed that the child, and this is a very specific belief in Catholicism, Lutheranism, Protestantism, that the child they murdered, having not yet sinned, would also attain salvation and be spared the damnation it might have earned at an older age. So it's like a safe thing to do because they're not going to be damned, right? They're going to go directly up to heaven, which everyone believed was better probably than life on earth anyways, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it was random. Sometimes they chose specific kids. And the other thing I wanted to put, I couldn't highlight the online version. So the reason this was believed, just to give context for you if you don't know, is that the conviction that suicides went to the devil originated with St. Augustine's assertion that the fifth commandment, so thou shalt not kill, applied to suicides as well. But it was Catholics considered it a mortal sin, which is the most grievous of sins, the gravest of sins, because they could not be absolved through the sacrament of confession, which is what we see here. So they were consigned to eternal damnation. So if you kill yourself, you can't apologize or confess to it and then thus have your sins absolved. So you're kind of screwed. Also, I had this one piece that I thought was so interesting. Do you have any questions so far? Sorry.
Not questions yet, just a comment that this was a fucked up comment, but I was talking to Jada about it, and I was like, yeah, it said that they mostly killed children, and she did it because she thought she was saving him from sinning. But I was like, but honestly, it also was probably easier, Like,
yeah.
I mean, what are you gonna kill your husband? Like, probably not. A grown person, I don't know. That's fucked up, but it's probably the truth.
I thought it was specifically because it was easier. But then knowing the piece of children are considered to be more pure and having committed sins just yet, especially not like mortal sins or horrible sins.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't need to confess before death to have their souls cleansed.
This just seems like a weird loophole. If you did this with the intent of knowing that you could turn around and be absolved of it through confession, like, what's the point of if you could literally just do anything and then go have a little absolution fest, oops, murdered somebody, and you're like, oops, adultery or whatever else, and then you're like, oh, sorry. And they're like, you're good. Like, I just don't get it. It feels like it shouldn't work that way.
Yes. So that's a really great question. When it comes to sins like that, they're it's analyzed when you're giving your confession. It has to be a true confession, true from your heart. You are truly sorry. And it does say, and I'm just pulling this from memory, from when I used to study Catholicism, that only you and God know if you're truly sorry within your heart. But that is the priest's kind of job to discern. And so there is also in this document where they talk about how, say the priest would be, or people you knew would testify against or in your favor and say, this is what it appeared to me. They said this prayer. This is the exact verbiage they used when they were repenting. And so then, the priest kind of has to make the judgment call. And they didn't always, they didn't always, what am I trying to say? Rule in their favor. Absolve them. But I think with these women, it was also acknowledged that their mental state. Yeah. And so that was taken into consideration too, and was seen as that they really did think that they were sorry. Like they found no other way out, and they were truly sorry for what they did. So that was taken into consideration too.
That makes sense. It's a little different than just like, I want to go murder somebody, so I'm going to do it. And then I'm just going to hop in the little confession booth and be like, sorry. Good to go. Back up to heaven.
Yeah, I think that it's depicted really well in this movie, I thought, with her confession. Yeah. She does seem anguished and sad and terrified. And so I think those were the types of things that they were looking for. And also women, in the majority were women, but men did suffer from this as well. I read one story where a man was going to shoot himself. Lots of stories where people were going to commit suicide, but were so terrified about committing suicide and committing a mortal sin that they just ended up killing someone else. Like he shot his partner instead. Or lots of stories with these women that would go down to the river to drown themselves and their baby, but couldn't. So just ended up killing the child instead because they were just so scared of hell, that much more scared of hell than killing their child.
Yeah, ending someone else's life. Yeah. That is so crazy to me. I mean, I get it. Don't get me wrong. Like, I understand the thought process of how you would get there, but I think that's such a perfect example of how this can be so fucking harmful, obviously, because it's like, exactly. Like, you're more scared of going to hell than you are of snuffing out another living being's life. Like, that is, we have lost the fucking plot here.
Yes. And how scary. Like, I truly stand by, I think religion can be absolutely beautiful, but unfortunately it's also just absolutely terrifying when people with evil means or that are obsessed with power start to use it to control people. And you see that here. Or
even just being, misguided here in this situation,
Yeah. I have just another piece from Kathy Stewart's paper. So in his Praxis Rerum Criminalium from 1554, a handbook on criminal law, Jos de Damhouder, a Flemish Catholic jurist, observed, "He who kills himself sins far more than he who kills another, for in the latter case, he only kills his neighbor's body, but cannot harm his soul. But he who kills himself indisputably loses both body and soul." I
disagree. But okay.
Here's a piece too. So if their repentance was genuine and heartfelt, Christ's grace would not be denied to them. No matter how heinous the crime, repentance brought absolution as long as it was genuine and heartfelt. So, I mean, they had to make the decision there on if it was. And child murder was the crime that was most attributed to this, but some other stuff they would do, like arson and sodomy was a crime back then. They would do that. would have the same results. Yeah. So I have some other stuff we could talk about later. I really loved when this first started. We're getting right into it. Love the look, the vibe, the feel. Yes, yes, yes. I'm here for it. And then they did, you probably saw them do this where they did a cross on their head, on their lip. And okay. I was like, oh, they're Catholic. This is a very Catholic thing to do. This means the Lord will be on my mind, on my lips and in my heart. And I was like, oh, and Steve he was not watching it with me, but he was sitting there and he was like, they are not Catholic. And I'm like, yes, I was so excited about this is a representation of Catholicism in this remote Austrian town or community in the 1700s. This is so cool. I just really enjoyed it. And so there was a lot of this Catholic, which makes sense because in Catholicism, and then I'll be quiet because Tawny is here. And so I'll let her talk.
This is great.
But in Catholicism, they really have this idea of the mortal sin or the venial sin, different types of sins. And suicide, as soon as they had that suicide and the body and all of that, I was like, oh gosh, it's just like all of these very Catholic like symbolism or information, for lack of a better word. And I actually do have this Catechism of the Catholic Church, which talks about everything that the Catholic Church believes. And this book was the edition I have was published in 1994, and it outlines suicide being a mortal sin. I did see something that they've removed it from the mortal sin list. I saw somebody had posted that, or maybe it was Google that told me that. However, they said in 1983, which this book was 1994, and it still was very much a mortal sin. But anyways, I was just nerding out on all of this stuff that I was like, oh my gosh, this is so fascinating. One thing I looked up that I couldn't find anything was this finger. I thought...
Oh, yes.
I
was really curious about this.
Yeah. I was like, is this I Googled it so many different ways. I even did like control find on her papers to see, was this something that had happened? And it really surprised me that she would have this finger. The first thing I thought is if my husband wasn't sleeping with me and I was in this situation, that I would have tossed the finger just to see, because in a lot of religions, because of the Bible specifically, there's a lot of rules about dead bodies and how you handle them, how you interact with them. And in her papers, she talks a lot about the body of someone who committed suicide back then was thought to, even if you put it on the ground, it desecrates the ground. That's why they could not be buried in. Oh, yeah. So they would be tossed. So the fact that they would take this finger and bring it into the house and put it under her mattress, I couldn't find anything on it. Maybe I just didn't get deep enough. I couldn't find anything on this being a practice.
Or they just put it in there.
Yeah, I was thinking it was maybe to highlight kind of this suspicious or superstitious aspect that comes from religions as well. That might not be explicitly stated, but just kind of grows within, a community. That's what I thought maybe
yeah, because he certainly wasn't the first to do it. That was very interesting to me. He cuts the finger, but other fingers and toes have been cut off of her body already. And so I was like, this must be a known thing. People are doing this. But why? I couldn't figure out the connection because it just doesn't seem connected to me to fertility at all either. I was not quite sure why she would put it under the bed, because that woman, it is the woman who killed the baby from the beginning. So yeah, I was not sure about that. But
I was thinking that, and this is just what I made up in my head, the woman repented and was so truly sorry she took the life of the baby that maybe there was this superstition that if she could, she would go back and she would not kill the baby. So maybe there was this idea that she could help
Yeah.
bring forth, like, for you, bless you with a baby, because she is so sad that she had taken the life of a baby. And technically she's in heaven if she was forgiven, as far as their point of view.
Yeah. But then why wouldn't they bury her body or do something with her body that's different either?
Ooh, I have something on that. So
that was, I mean, that it is grisly for sure. Like, they just leave her body and next to her decapitated head.
Yes, I think there was a mix of things. So sometimes they did bury them, but I think this particular visual that was depicted in the movie, from the same paper, there is this piece that says suicide by proxy was frequent enough in Austrian lands to occasion the publication of an edict specifically directed against the offense. So just to bring you up to speed to this particular page, it was getting out of control. So
yeah,
Catholics, Protestants, Lutherans, and Protestantism, Lutheranism is a schism from Catholicism. So they hold a lot of the same beliefs, but then there's some fundamental things that are different that made them schism. So it makes sense that this was very rampant between these religions. But Catholicism and Protestantism specifically. But they were like, it's becoming so rampant. So they started to put up those little papers like you saw in the movie, where they would put up the paper of the crime with pictures. And her paper has those pictures throughout the ages. So it's super cool. I'll post it for you guys. But anyways, an edict of March 22nd, 1706 ordered that if an unknown male or female person who is neither related nor a servant out of pure malice commits the sin of child murder, such a murderer should have his or her head and hand chopped off, and the hand should be attached to the pillory. The edict specifically mentioned that the penalty should apply to people even if such a child murderer was committed out of weariness of life. So weariness of life is something we see in the movie, and that is another term for like melancholia.
Okay.
And that's what a lot of the women said, their weariness of life, that they saw this was the only way. So I'm wondering if that depiction was kind of looping in that piece of information of how she was displayed, and also trying to prevent other people from doing it. Because I guess in this paper it was talking about in Austria, it became a real big problem. Maybe because that mud and that job every day, like I can't even.
Yeah, it did seem terrible. I was like, this setup is scary to me. Like, they're like living in a house with like a dirt floor, like you trudging through the mud to like scoop up fish. I was like, God, this does look awful.
Yes, so awful. This one from it. Oh, this is, I think they took a lot of these different pieces and put it all within this one character. Because Maria, this was in 1691, Maria Magdalena Wolf was her name, but different person, but the husband's name was Wolf. So I thought that was interesting. Appeared at the gates of a city dungeon, announced that she had murdered a child and demanded to be let in. And she was killed after she repented for her sins. What she had done is... Oh, I'm sorry. So she had explained that several times she tried to drown herself, but was too scared about being damned. So she went to a city, stole a baby, and strangled the baby with her kerchief, and killed her 6-year-old sister. And all of these different things that happened was the reason was out of the impatience and weariness with their lives.
Yeah, that's crazy. I wonder what. Yeah, this seems like such a specific, like localized issue too, potentially. Like, I'm sure it was happening other places, but.
Yeah, there was Austria, Sweden, Germany, but there was it seemed like an epidemic of it in Austria.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if people like, it was just like one of those things where they heard of it and it spread in that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think probably it's in the second half of her paper that I didn't get to, but I will be checking it out.
I wonder if taking the pieces of that woman wasn't to try to ward off this melancholy. That would make more sense to me rather than it being related to fertility.
But he gave it to her on the night of their wedding as a gift.
I know. It's weird. And she put it under the mattress. But
it was specifically before she was going to have sex. And I believe in the Wikipedia description, it did say for fertility.
Yeah. I feel like you get that for sure through the movie. But I was just trying to, I don't know. I am having a hard time connecting that. But
I wonder if you think about it, it's like crazy shit like don't walk under a ladder. It'll bring you bad luck.
That's true.
Something happened probably. Someone walked under a ladder and they got hurt. And so now it's like, don't walk under a ladder. Don't open that umbrella in the house.
You know what else I thought was weird? But not in a bad way. But when they go to execute her at the end, everybody's kind of like, it's very somber. And her husband obviously is like racked with guilt. Like he feels bad and that sucks. I felt bad for him as a character. But they execute her and then it's just fucking party time. Everybody's like, yeah, like playing like instruments and just, it gave me some like definite Wicker Man vibes.
Yeah.
And I think that was the intent for sure. But that was weird to me too, is like I was struggling to kind of like, what is the vibe and tone of this? Why are people, I mean, I could see how you would be celebratory in the way that you're like, yeah, we don't want somebody fucking running around killing our children. You know, we got to get this person out of here. We got to, take care of that problem. But it was like a very weird switch of tone.
Yes. Okay. So if you think about it, and I would love to research that more. I bet she has something on it because she does have this other paper I didn't get to read about the insanity defense and public executions. But I think about any movie period piece you watch where there's public executions, people are in it. They're celebrating. They're chastising the person as they're being taken to the gallows. And then afterwards they're celebrating. And it's this whole spectacle. It's like almost like going to see a play. It's an event. Mm-hmm. And I wondered also when they were drinking the blood.
I forgot about that. Yeah, drinking
like
blood.
It's almost like these women, now that I think about it, both of these women, they did a horrible thing. And when they were executed, and the way she was executed is typically how they do it. They'd behead like that in front of everybody. But then their blood and their bodies somehow can be used as to help protect you or bless you or something.
Exactly. This is why it's confusing to me. Like I was struggling to understand why, before she's dead, it is sort of like let's execute this person who did a terrible thing. But once they're dead, their like bodies are revered for some reason. They're like celebrating that. I don't know, but.
Okay. So I just Googled it really quick. And so this is just what AI Google's telling me. Historically, in some cultures, people did drink the blood of executed criminals, often believing it could cure certain ailments like epilepsy, with the practice being most prevalent in Europe during the medieval and early modern periods.
Whoa, weird. Why?
Oh, this was a practice often seen at public executions where people would collect the blood of the executed person and drink it. The practice was intertwined with folklore and superstitions surrounding blood and its magical powers.
Whoa, weird. Okay, so that is a real thing.
Oh,
then.
Shit, yeah. Oh, there was a medical belief that consuming the blood of a healthy person, especially one who was executed, could transfer vitality or healing properties to the drinker. Ugh, okay. I'm so glad I live in modern times.
Me too.
They'd be handing me a cup of that and I'd be like, I'm good. And they'd be like, you gotta drink it.
Thanks.
Stop it. Drink it. I might be seen as a witch if I didn't drink the blood.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I thought they did a really great job with just putting you right into this life. If you don't enjoy this type of movie, you might be like, this is slow. But I didn't feel that because I felt like you were just in it and you're progressively losing your mind along with her. She so desperately wanted a baby. You could imagine that's probably the most exciting thing in your whole life is having a baby. If all you're doing every day is seeing the same people in this very, very remote place, going through this thick ass mud and scooping up fish, having a stepmother who's just reaming you every day. And now,
mother-in-law.
Yeah, I'm sorry. What did I say?
Stepmother.
Oh, yeah. No, the stepmother's all good. The mother-in-law. And now Agnes has a husband she loves, and he, now that they're married, is not affectionate. He doesn't kiss her. He doesn't hug her. He does not have sex with her. I am thinking because he is gay, it seemed that that's what they were portraying, so he couldn't get aroused by her. This is her life forever. This is not like now where I'm like, screw it. I'm leaving you, Steve, and I'm gonna move to Colorado and have a new life. It's not like that. That's not gonna happen.
Yeah, because like, where would you go?
With what?
Like
you don't even have anything like with your chicken, and you're gonna go.
You literally
do what?
walk. Yeah. What? Yeah. Where are you going? She goes back to her home, her family home, and they sort of turn her away. They're like, you have to go back to your husband. And that was sad. That sucked. And you can tell that she has other interests. You know, we see her in the beginning. She's like looking at little like dead bugs that she's found, or like pieces of rock and wood, like anything like kind of shiny. She's just like not interested in, you know, this domestic like cooking and stuff. And when he threw those things in the fire, I gasped.
Me too.
I was like, no, because he finds it, and it just looks like trash, kind of. He just
they're dead bugs and little leaves and stuff.
I was like, no.
He just tossed it into the fire, and that is a good point. That it kind of looked like trash. Because I thought he knew exactly how special that was to her. And he was like, you are no longer you. You have a new role.
Oh, I don't know. I felt like he didn't even know. She seemed to like keep that sort of a secret. Like, I think the only time we ever saw her pull it out was when no one was around and look at the items, but then she would put it all back. And so the mother-in-law does see them, and she is like, throw that stuff away. And she leaves it on the thing. So I thought, I think I read it as innocent. Like, he didn't know. He just tossed it in the fire.
Okay. Because I had thought
he was just cleaning up. He was cleaning up around the house.
I thought it was like, enough of this. She's showing up late. She's kind of just out in nature for however long she wants to be.
He didn't seem as bothered by this, though, to me. Like, and
really?
Him and his mom even had a conversation where she was like going on about it. Or no, it was him talking to her, to Agnes. And he goes like, you know, they're from a different generation. Like,
yeah, but there was a period of time when he was saying he was clearly perturbed when she wasn't home to make him dinner, and his mom had to come and make dinner. And then there was a couple nights in a row. And I believe he had said something to her along the lines of, you know, this has to stop. Like, there's definitely the mom was like, this has to stop. There's other stuff that needs to get done. He was probably sick of his mom coming over too to cook him dinner. He's like, can you just cook dinner, please?
Yeah. He's like, I don't want to deal with her either.
Yeah, but he definitely wasn't an asshole. Yeah, I didn't get that vibe at all. But everyone has their roles. Yeah. And she can't just not come home and he doesn't have dinner. Because men didn't make themselves dinner. Like, obviously, because he had his mom come and make it. But it was disrupting the balance of, her behavior was disrupting the balance of the flow of life that they were all accustomed to and everyone has to contribute to. Yeah, true. But you're right. Maybe he just cleaned up. But I did see it, though, as that was like her final, whether it was intentional or not, that last piece of her was gone.
Yeah, you feel it. It hurts.
Yeah.
It fucking hurts when you see that happen because they just did a really good job of this. She's like isolated. She's not around the family, but she seems to have a very warm and great relationship with her like brother and mom. But then she has to go to this other little village and she is dealing with her husband. Like you said, once they're married, he's not an asshole, but he's also not very warm either. And the mother-in-law is so critical and annoying. And then she tries to make a friend, but that friend ends up being mad at her. So she's like totally alone and she's being expected to do these things that she doesn't want to do. And you are like, oh man, this sucks, dude. Like, and it hurts when these things happen to her. Like when she loses the one friend that she has, you're like, no, God.
Yeah. And that one friend, I'm like, come on, man. It's like, she's not in charge of giving out the bread.
Right.
It's obviously that other woman, and she doesn't want anyone to have 2 pieces because Agnes would have given her 2 pieces of bread.
Yeah, totally.
I feel so bad for Agnes.
I know, me too. You feel so bad for her. In some ways, before we move too far beyond this, I really feel like this movie somehow felt very modern. Like there's like a lot of modern things, like, you know, a relationship with your significant other and your like mother-in-law sort of. I feel like this still happens, you know, where they're like butting in and it's weird and it like pits you against your significant other because they don't want to take sides because it's like their parent. And, you know, going and working, like she was trying to work alongside them to help. And I don't know, just all of this felt very like modern as well as very old timey.
I totally agree. And on a darker side of the modern, still happening today, when people become so depressed and kill their children or their spouses, maybe not for the reason of, you know, going to heaven or hell.
Yeah.
But just becoming so depressed that your life and other people's lives don't matter.
Totally.
Yeah, I agree.
And you
with
like cannot see a way out.
Yeah. I love how they had nature weaved through this, and I almost saw it as that is where she felt most close to God, was in nature. That peace and that closeness to God. I loved that scene where she was really in the depths of it, and she's just lying in the forest with her head against the earth and her hands. She's just lying there with her face.
Oh, I thought she was asleep. Was she not asleep?
I don't think so. I think she was lying in this particular one I'm thinking of. Maybe there was one where she was in that little covered place sleeping. But on that one, I thought that she was laying and like almost caressing the earth, like being a part of the earth and caressing the earth.
That makes more sense because the scene right before that is where she goes off and is hanging out with her new friend, and they sit under an overhang, and she's like, "I like to come here sometimes." And then we cut to her like holding the earth like that, and I was like, did they just do drugs? And she like passed out on the ground and just wakes up hours later, and she's like, I have to get home.
I could be wrong. I felt like she was like tenderly embracing the earth.
I mean, that stands to reason because I feel like all the things that she collects and she appreciates is, you know, nature and the insects and bugs and fish scales. Like she seems to have a reverence for nature that the people around her don't.
And maybe this beauty of truly what it means to be truly where God is present in nature versus in man's interpretation of God's laws and God's rules, and really how damaging that is when you take this really beautiful, pure thing like what you see in nature and then distort it with these, okay, now suicide, people can't be buried, and just like all of these different things that cause so much pain and anguish once it's how it is interpreted by man. Yeah,
that's a really good point. I also think, now that I'm thinking about it, I think those shots were even more like they were prettier, they felt better, they were more saturated. It was like green and lush, and like any shots in the city, in the house, whatever, it's like fucking gray, bleak, no color.
I also felt for Wolf. You know, you feel angry at him a little bit when he's not, like, he's totally rejecting her, he's not having sex with her. But then you see him getting really, really drunk and trying to make these connections with other men, but he's totally wasted and they're just pushing him off. And so if you think about that, back then, along the same lines, sodomy specifically was a mortal sin, and you could be convicted of death. So you have him as well. So she has this melancholia. He is gay, and he absolutely cannot act on his impulses. So they're both in this relationship where I think they do love each other. I think she loves him romantically and doesn't understand. I think it's very clear he loves her, but he just doesn't feel that way to her, and how scary and that is for him too.
Yeah, totally. Because he does seem to want to help. I mean, he just doesn't really know how to help.
Yeah.
And even the mother-in-law, I mean, she's pretty mean and critical and terrible, but like towards the end, when she really becomes despondent, like when she's laying in bed and just won't get up, like the mother-in-law is you get the impression that she would like to help if she could. She feels bad for her. It's not all just, it's not just like black and white characters, which is awesome because, I mean, they're speaking a different language, and I feel like the dialogue is very small. Like there's not a lot of it.
Yeah.
So it was just really well directed and acted for us to be able to pick up on those subtleties with these characters.
Yeah, I agree. Because you could even say with the mother, I mean, really, was she mean? She was, I mean, I did see her as mean, but now that we're talking, she did what needed to be done. She seemed like she was managing all of these people, all the brothers. Did she have a husband? I don't know. We didn't meet him, but like all of these people listened to her. She was the matriarch. She employed the people, and she got the food to feed them when they wouldn't have employment or food. Like she was strict and she was hard, but like this life has made her hard. And I think a lot of the older generation, like Wolf had mentioned, she feels she knows the best way to do it. Don't stack your pots, they'll scratch. You got to hang them. That's why there's hooks here. Like this is the best way to keep your house. You are this young woman who's a new wife, and I kind of need to show you this is how things need to be done. And especially being the mother of a son, this and her having been that to her husband, you need to take care of him. You need to cook. You can't just go wandering around at night. You need to get home and you need to cook. And if she had kids, it would be the same thing. You need to do this for your kids. You need to do that. This is the right way to do it. Don't stray. Because she seemed more devout religiously than any of the other ones.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
So that's not an issue. But as far as this is how you need to be. If we're going to survive, you need to do this.
Yeah, that's true, too, because there is kind of this, additional layer of just everybody has to work together in this tiny little, we keep calling it a village. I feel like that's even overstating it. It's like a group of like fucking, it's like 15 people or something.
Yeah.
Like it's very small. And so they do need to all work together to continue to feed each other. Like, they all have to go out there and get those fish so they can eat.
So probably at this point, she's like, there's no fucking around.
Yeah. Stop gallivanting around in the forest.
Yeah, stop it. Get over here. You need to be doing your work. Yeah.
She's like, make your own dinner, Wolf.
Yeah. Men do not cook the dinner.
I want to go lay on the ground.
Yes, exactly. Then we see her torturing herself, self-harming by taking that rat poison. For the longest time, like, what is she doing? I thought she was taking hallucinogens, or
I thought so too.
Know what it was until they said it was rat poison. But because at first I was like, well, I think actually now that I read this whole thing to you, maybe this is the depiction of all of these, because it was a lot of people, men and women, who would try many times to kill themselves, but the fear of damnation stopped them. I wonder if that's this depiction of she's slowly killing herself, but not like taking all of it and ending her life, right?
Yeah, totally.
Self-harming herself.
Yeah, because I was like, for a very long time, what is that? It seems like she was taking, I thought maybe it was like opium or something, but I was like, I don't know if that was a thing in this tiny little village. But I think you're right, because she does try to get absolved, or she wants to confess. She's like, go get the priest, but he can't find him. He's like not home. So she just has to like weather the night. And then he takes her back to her house, and that's where she gets better and sort of wakes up from the rat poison. But
yeah, and you're absolutely right. Tawny, you're absolutely right. That's it. She is committing suicide, but in a way that on the verge of death, she can still confess and be absolved.
And that still doesn't work.
And that doesn't work.
Man, okay. I didn't think about it that way, that is her, like, that's like the last attempt to do it in a way that doesn't hurt or harm anybody else. But even that doesn't work.
She doesn't die. She gets better once she... And she doesn't get to the priest in time either, or the priest doesn't get to her.
Yeah.
Because if she said she was sorry for her sin of trying to commit suicide and he absolved her and then she took more rat poison, that wouldn't work. Because you're not sorry. True. You'd have to confess again. You'd literally just have to have the priest come every single day and confess that you're sorry. And then is he even going to believe you at this point? I've been here 10 times, Agnes, for the love of God.
I wasn't like reading that correct, but you're so right. Like she was doing it in the hope, because right when he goes to leave, she takes some more of it. And I think you're right that she's trying to like take in the amount that will kill her before the priest gets there, so then she can be forgiven and then die. Yes. But that does not work. So she's got to kill a kid. And man, that was a rough scene. That kid did a really good job of acting, and it was bad to watch. I was like, anybody who doesn't want to see kids in distress should not watch this movie. That was rough.
That scene, that little boy is phenomenal. Steve was sitting by me, and he actually dropped what he was doing and watched that whole scene. He seems so legitimately terrified. What an amazing job that was.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
He's like pleading with her, and it's dark.
Oh, the only other thing I wanted to mention that I found fascinating was this particular epidemic, I guess, also emboldened the different religions. So Catholicism, because more of this was happening within Protestantism, that Catholicism was then, or Catholic leaders were like, see, this is proof that by leaving, okay, so Protestantism is a schism from Catholicism, right? So it was Catholicism, and then this group broke off, and then all these different Christian religions based on, I don't agree with this or that, started to form. There was a significantly more of these deaths and such that were Protestant for a period of time, that were Protestants. So then Catholics, or the communication from Catholic leaders were like, see, this is proof that this group of people or these people should not have strayed away from the Catholic Church, and they're actually being influenced by the devil. And so kind of fueled more of that division between the different religious groups. So maybe I'm the only one that found that interesting, but
no, I mean, that is interesting, but I'm sure it came and got them too.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, we all know that. Yeah, I think that's all I have. The last thing I want to say is just give props to this actress, Anya, who played Agnes. I thought her performance was so beautiful, and I don't know why it stuck with me so much, but this pain that she was going through, this absolute devastation, you could just feel it. And then she was arrested for the murder, and she was getting ready to confess. And so they had brought her clothes. I don't know, it just broke my heart, where she's in the prison and she's getting all dressed and this is her moment now. Like she
Yeah.
has on the white clothes and she's smoothing them down and she's getting ready because now this is the moment that all of her pain and suffering will be over. And
Yeah.
it's crazy because what follows is her being beheaded, but she knows she's so full of joy and pain and sadness. And I just thought this was beautiful. And then she confesses and she's just spilling out and waiting. And then the priest absolves her and she just starts hysterically crying and laughing in joy, in absolute joy. And then it turns to devastation again, like just the sadness for everything. And she's so peaceful when she goes up to get her head cut off, singing that little song. And thank you. Okay, thank you. I don't know, to myself. This is what I was going to say.
Thank you, self.
The very last thing when they have a little girl who is in the audience staring at her and singing this same tune as she is. And I was wondering if that was reflected of this is very possibly this young girl's fate too. It's not guaranteed, but because it was such an epidemic, is this like showing that this is possibly, there's a connection there. She's connecting with this woman that's being beheaded and they're singing together. And I don't know if this was the purpose, but I saw this as just feeling sad in general for women in that era, the realities of life for women in that era.
I read it. I had a different read on it. I felt like it was because everybody kind of, it wants her to go be executed, right? Because she murdered a child in their community. Of course, that's terrible. But then once they get her up there, it gets real quiet and it's very, like I said, somber. And she starts singing that song and the little girl sings with her. And I read it as like, even though they want her to be executed for this crime, there is still this underlying like level of understanding. Like they understand why she did what she did.
Yeah, that's true.
But I like your read too, that it is this like that could be her future as well. She gets married off to a different village, goes there, feels isolated.
I have another read. This was,
okay.
I totally wasn't planning this. It was the very last thing I was able to read before I had to get ready. So I didn't even think about it. But here's one of the pictures, and I'll post them, of like when they started to put the engravings, like we see them posting to the tree. They would draw these little pictures of the actual thing that happened.
Yeah.
And they had a little inscription. And I just skimmed this because I was like, oh, I gotta go get dressed. But now it's coming to me. So let me just tell you this last thing and we'll be done. So I was telling you that story of Maria Magdalena who killed a little girl. And it says right here, okay, this deed inspired no fewer than 4 publications. So this is about how they used to publicize this to kind of stop people from doing this, including several engravings that's what those postings are called, that have the picture of the dead child, and numerous murder ballads circulating in manuscripts, replete with the folk song melodies that they were set to. One of the printed ballads publicized the motive, and there's just like it's a little song, kind of like you think of Ring Around the Rosies, Pocket Full of Posies was about the plague. Little ballads would be created and sung, kind of reinforcing, don't do this anymore.
Ah, okay.
That just came to me. I wonder if that might be a part of it. Now I want to go back, and I may, because she was singing a version. Did the version of that song change? I'm wondering now, because was it about her crime like they're saying here? They would make these little ballads about the crime. I want to see what the words to the song were.
Yeah, I don't remember. I feel like they weren't entirely connected, but
because now the little girl is singing this song, and this is what they used to do back in the day, is create these murder ballads.
Yeah, so that it's like this catchy,
a warning,
like,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sing-songy warning for kids.
Which is a lot of nursery rhymes.
Yeah.
Are that.
Interesting.
All right. Hot dog. That's all I got.
Awesome.
I hope
great
you enjoyed
research.
it. Okay, good.
I did. That was great.
Would you like to rate it?
Yes.
All right. Ooh, one more thing before you brought it up earlier, before we rate it, I want to talk about the body horror element of it. I mean, there was the finger and there was the murdering and the dead bodies, but when she is going to purge herself of melancholia, the medieval ways.
Yeah.
You want to?
It's so bad. Yeah.
Yes.
She goes to, they call him the barber, which I thought was weird, but
me too.
But she goes
Maybe
there
he has
to this.
many jobs.
That's
Maybe
kind of
he
what I was
also
thinking.
cuts hair.
I was like, he must also cut hair. I don't know. Or maybe a barber was like something different. But they go, or it could just be like a different word, you know. But she goes in and there's a bunch of these other people in there naked and they're doing things like they have leeches on them. And so they're doing like bloodletting, like total medieval, you know, health things. So what they do for her is they cut off a length of hair, looks like human hair, and they thread it through the skin on the back of her neck. And he says, this will drain the melancholy from you as long as you keep it festering. So she's supposed to reach up and like thread it through her skin. And keep it hurting and festering so that the melancholy, I'm like, this is like so the opposite. Like this would not make you I mean, maybe you'd be distracted by how fucking terrible and bad it is that you forget your sadness, but I was like, no way this makes this better. It's like, it just makes it worse.
Yeah.
Did you see anything about that? Like any research if that was like a real thing?
Ooh, no. I am going to have to look that up because when I putting hair threaded through your neck to purge melancholia, I just got a bunch of things on threading. So like to remove hair.
Eyebrow threading.
Yeah, eyebrow threading. But it seems very much that idea because they would cut you open to bleed it out or put frogs in your mouth and the frog would take away the sore throat, apparently, you know. So this idea, I guess, of maybe the festering would ooze out the melancholia.
Yeah.
So gross. So gross.
Yeah,
At
very
first,
gross.
I thought that's why she was getting sick.
Oh, because it got infected?
Yeah, I thought she had an infection. But then we
That would
don't
make
see
sense.
her remove it. So at first I thought this stuff was medicine and that she was becoming infected. And then when she's washing herself, I kind of like clenched up a little bit, like, oh, she's touching her neck, like thinking this has got to hurt at this point. But she seems to like wash herself. And I don't know if at some point they must have removed it.
Yeah. It kind of doesn't come back up.
Yeah, it doesn't come back up, but oof. All right.
Ugh.
All right. Now that we've disturbed you with that, we're ready to rate it.
Okay. I think I'm going to give this a 3.75.
Okay, nice.
Because I'm just looking back at this year, and I gave like The Offering a 3.85 and The Ritual a 3.8, and I don't think I liked it as much as those. I also gave The Witch a 3.75. I've been thinking lately that maybe I underscored that a little bit, but
that makes
I think
3.7.
Yeah. I know. I think that one's taken me just a long time to like seep in and appreciate, but I don't have the same love for it that a lot of other people do, but it is a great movie. And the more times that I've watched it, the more I've enjoyed it. So I think that one is one that I probably should increase the rating on, but yeah, I think 3.75 fits. I did really like this. It was a very different type of movie. I'm not gonna, it's definitely a horror movie in my opinion, because we're watching somebody experience horrific, like a life that is horrific, and the implications of what she then decides to do are horror, I think. But the vibe of it was just so different than I thought it was going to be. And it was pretty slow to me. I was able to hang in there and watch it, but I definitely was like, yeah, this is slow. and I wish something would happen by now.
Where is the devil?
Where is he? I'm like,
what's happening here?
What's going on? Something happened, please. But it was good. In the end, I liked it, and it's going to stick with me. I can tell because it's already stuck with me from when I watched it.
That's awesome. I love it.
What about you?
That's a good score. I am going to give this a 4.9.
Ooh,
that's how much I liked it. I just was in it.
This is so up your alley.
Yeah, I was really enjoying everything. I enjoyed the research after. I want to read more. I thought it was such an intriguing story, and I thought it was beautifully done. So I looked at one of my 3.89s. I don't remember which one it was. Something I clicked on and saw that it was a 3.89. I'm like, I liked it more than that. So, because I was thinking 3.89. And I'm like, nope. Okay, hold on. Let me rewind all of that. I looked at something else and it was a 4.89 oddity. Okay, there, that makes more sense. You're like, wow, you really raised that score. So oddity was a 4.89 and I liked this more. So I was like, okay, but I don't think there's something just with the 5 level.
It's not quite there.
It's not quite there. So 4.9 for me.
Okay, that's a great score though. It's a great score. And yeah, this is totally your type of movie. We've got folk horror, religious undertones, and also just, I think that the fact that there's a real element, like this is based on something that really happened, is interesting to both of us, but
yeah,
it's like a perfect mix for you.
It's like checks all the boxes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, everybody. So if you want to feel awesome, don't forget to go to Magic Mind and get your stuff, get your shots. You go to magicmind.com/chicks20 and use the code chicks20. So you can get up to 48% off your first subscription for the next 10 days and 20% off a one-time purchase. You can also get the link in our bio, linked it in bio. So, or in this show notes if you're on YouTube. And please, if you have seen The Devil's Bath, share your favorite scenes, quotes, and theories on social media using the hashtag 2chicksandahorrorflick. And while you're there, please do give us a follow. And what else, Tawny?
You can support the show by giving us a like, review, and subscribe on whatever podcatcher you're listening to us on. And that's it. So we'll see you next time. And we hope you have such a good night. No nightmares.